Hello everybody, today I'll be talking about how the power of media has assisted African Americans during the Civil Rights Movement, fight the war on drugs, and combat common stereotypes about African Americans that we see in today's society. Let's get started with the Civil Rights Movement. So what most people know about the Civil Rights era is that the Civil Rights Act of 1964 ended segregation in public spaces, but what most people do not know is how media played a part in accomplishing these goals. Now, what do you connect with the Civil Rights era when you think of media? The pictures of dogs barking at people while fire hoses are being sprayed at them? Or the brutality brought upon those who joined in on the freedom rides throughout the South? These videos and images weren't coincidental. Let's take a step back in 1968 when there was no Twitter, there was no Instagram, and there was no Facebook. It was harder for people in the South to communicate with the brutality that was being brought upon them by people in the North. So what did they do? They made the news. Yes, international news.
5 hours after the House passes the measure, the Civil Rights Act of 1964 is signed at the White House by President Johnson. Before an audience of legislators and civil rights leaders who had labored long and hard for passage of the bill, President Johnson calls for all Americans to back what he calls a turning point in history.
We must not approach
By inciting violence through civil disobedience, protesters were able to focus media attention on the evils of segregation in the South. This gained them international attention, empathy from people throughout the country, and overall active participants in the civil rights movement. Now let's focus on the war on drugs. The war on drugs was started by President Richard Nixon to stop African American advancements that came from the civil rights movement. Although incarceration rates were at an all-time high because of the war on drugs, media was used to combat this. During the 70s, a comedian was on the rise who was known for being politically active and having squeaky clean humor. His name was Bill Cosby. During the early 80s, he started a show called The Cosby Show. He plays Cliff Huxtable, a father of 5 and a doctor. His wife, Claire Huxtable, who's a lawyer. Using media, Bill Cosby portrays the perfect African-American family to show kids and families who are African-American throughout the country that it is possible to succeed in America. This show became an instant success, and with Bill Cosby's television fame, he created multiple spin-offs, and within the coming years from '84 to the mid-90s, college enrollments were at an all-time high for African-American male and females. Before long, Bill Cosby found himself on Richard Nixon's blacklist, and Bill Cosby's response was that Nixon was on his list before Nixon even knew who he was. Now let's get to modern time. Today, mass media portrays images of African Americans that are usually negative through things like rap.
She got me throwing money in the air like we don't give a fuck, looking for a tip. I mean a tip. We throwing money in the air like we don't give a fuck, looking for a tip.
This is combated by media as well. Directors such as Ryan Coogler create films like Black Panther, which shows healthy, civilized African communities such as Wakanda, and characters who show leadership and who are educated such as T'Challa, who brings the world together with the power of vibranium. Throughout the history of America, African Americans have used their media platforms to combat negative images of black people that have been perpetuated. This started with people like Frederick Douglass and Ida B. Wells writing newspapers, all the way up until today with directors such as Ryan Coogler creating the film Black Panther. I hope you enjoyed my vlog about the power of media and how it has been used to alter the reality of African Americans in the United States. Thank you.